Hold up, why do they doubt the kid? I'm about to prove them all wrong again. I got a low tolerance, cause they don't even know what the problem is. It's me. You waiting on the boy to fail, then hold your breath and face your death. Cause you play a roulette with each step. I progress, no less. Go ahead and place your bet.
Welcome back, y'all. This is the Double M Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jesus Dinero, here with my co-host,
Puma El Gato.
What do we got going on tonight, my man?
It's UFC Fight Night. Bobby Knuckles, Robert Whitaker going up against RDR, Rainier DeRitter. Let's talk about it.
So, you guys know, if you guys have been watching the channel, that I am a big fan of Robert Whitaker. I have many times said that if Israel Adesanya didn't exist, Robert Whitaker would be the longest champion in that division. Now, obviously, Israel Adesanya does exist. So, unfortunately for Bobby Knuckles, he's always come up in second place when it comes to Israel Adesanya. Now, don't get me wrong. Bobby Knuckles has been champion, obviously. But anytime that he's faced Adesanya, he just can't cross the finish line. Comes close, but just can't do it. So what does that lead us into this match? RDR is a great fighter. Good at a lot of the things that he does. Phenomenal work. Most recent match up against Bo Nickel. Put Bo Nickel in his place. Looked great doing it, so on and so forth. That being said, I'm going to pick the man that I came to the dance with, and that's going to be Robert Whitaker. I think Robert Whitaker is great in a number of different spaces. And again, as I said a second ago, if it were not for Israel Adesanya, Robert Whitaker would be the longest reigning champion. Robert Whitaker just has a lot of the tools in both the stand-up game and the ground game that I think is going to get him over the finish line. I think Robert Whitaker puts together for each individual fighter a good game plan. If you look when he's fought, the different number of fighters that he's fought, it just seems like Robert Whitaker knows who he's fighting, knows what he needs to do for that particular fighter, knows how to get it done. The unfortunate part for Robert Whitaker is that when Robert Whitaker faces an elite level talent in striking as a Israel Adesanya, he just can't cross the finish line because, this is going to sound bad, Robert Whitaker's striking is just not as good as Israel Adesanya's. That's why Israel Adesanya pieces him up quite nicely, if I'm being honest. But he's not facing Israel Adesanya, is he? He's facing RDR. I think even though RDR, I would call RDR the dark horse in the division in the sense of, I think a lot of people don't give RDR the shine that he deserves. I think a lot of people respect him, don't get me wrong, but I feel like he's always talked about secondhand, and I feel like that's kind of bad. I think RDR can absolutely get the job done, but I think Robert Whitaker is just one slight step ahead of him. Now, I will preface that with saying Robert Whitaker is starting to become an old fighter. He's starting to slow down a little bit. In fact, in his last couple fights, I did notice a certain slowdown in his maneuvering, the way that he carried himself, the way that he was throwing punches and whatnot. That's not to say he can't win. In fact, again, I'm picking Robert Whitaker to win. I personally think it's going to be via decision. I think it is going to go all the way to the end of the match. But I think Robert Whitaker has enough to get the job done in those 3 rounds. I think he has enough experience, which is the number one thing that I'm going to give Robert Whitaker over RDR. I think Robert Whitaker has obviously faced much better talent than a RDR. And I think because of that, I think Robert Whitaker is going to get it over the finish line. The only problem is that after that, we have to start talking about giving Robert Whitaker a shot at the title again. He's had multiple bites at the apple, and unfortunately, he just hasn't been able to do it. As we all know, Dracus is currently champion. So maybe it's a little bit different for Robert Whitaker facing Dracus than Israel Adesanya. But Drake has also beat Israel Adesanya, so it's be interesting. Again, we all know boxing math, MMA math doesn't make any sense, so it doesn't matter who beats who. It's all about styles making fights. So I think Robert Whitaker stands a chance. It just, again, Robert Whitaker's gotten multiple bites at the apple. I don't think too many people are barking up the tree for him to get another one. But again, if he beats RDR, we have to start talking about it. My official prediction, I'm going to pick Robert Whitaker to win. I'm going to pick by decision. I think it is going to go to 4 rounds. I think Robert Whitaker is going to dominate quite well in the things that he's going to do. I think striking-wise, he's going to do well. I wouldn't do too much grappling, but I think he is going to do well in the striking. And, we'll see what happens with that. But what do you think about that, my man?
It's actually interesting that you point out the age of Robert Whitaker and that he's slowing down in the fighter. It's actually interesting because both Robert Whitaker and RDR are actually the same age. They're actually both 34, born in the same year. The interesting thing about that, whatever, is that you are absolutely right in that Robert Whitaker actually does have the heavier resume. Hell, he even actually has more fights under his belt than does a RDR. RDR, I think, kind of started later in his life, so obviously he doesn't have even if they would have fought the same people, it's just RDR just hasn't had the amount of fights that Robert Whitaker has. RDR definitely was looking a bit fresh coming off of the Bo Nickel fight, beating him in TKO in the second round, getting a submission win over fan favorite Kevin Holland, rear naked choke in the third round. So I do think RDR is definitely on a bit of a hot streak. Robert Whitaker has been as well until that loss to Hamzat Chimaev at UFC 308. So I do think the aspect of Robert Whitaker losing at a big numbered pay-per-view against somebody that was on the rise, I think is what relegated him to be on a fight night card. And RDR is basically, I don't want to say a new up-and-coming name, but definitely a name that's been climbing up the ranks as of late. And again, against somebody that was basically being called a fraud and getting proven that in Bo Nichols and fighting a fan favorite, I think that's definitely driven up RDR stock up a lot. And I do think if he gets Robert Whitaker on the resume as a W, I think it's going to shoot up RDR stock a lot. But the big question is, can RDR get it done? He definitely does have the potential for it, but I do think Robert Whitaker does etch him out in everything except for, I think, the ground game. I think the ground game is where RDR would definitely shine a little bit more on Robert Whitaker. But the problem is can he get Robert Whitaker to the ground? And while I do think, yeah, it's a possibility, I just think Robert Whitaker is going to keep him at bay with the striking. I agree with you. It is going to go to a decision for the most part, but RDR is definitely not going to make it easy on the man, but at the same time, neither is Robert Whitaker. I think RDR is going to try and get this man down into the ground and try and go for a submission. But I do think, yeah, Robert Whitaker's striking is going to keep him at arm's length, and rightly so. Robert Whitaker should keep him at arm's length at all times because RDR can get dangerous when it comes to the grappling game. But yeah, Robert Whitaker is gonna keep him at arm's length for the most part. It's gonna go to a unanimous decision, and it's gonna go in the favor of Robert Whitaker.
Yeah, man, I completely agree. Again, taking a look at Robert Whitaker's resume as I was doing right now, he just has more experience, man. I think Robert Whitaker has enough experience to where he can keep it on the feet. He has good takedown defense. I think, given the number of individuals that he's faced that have tried to take him down, they've had some success, some failure. But I think Robert Whitaker can absolutely defend against takedowns. And I think as far as his striking game, I do think his striking game is just a little bit above what RDR's is. It's going to be a good fight. I'm interested. I'm a little sad that it's on a fight night because I think Robert Whitaker deserves more respect than that, especially because essentially this is a contender. And listen, I know we all know Hamzat has Drakus next. And listen, man, even though I actually don't know who I'm favoring in that match, Drakus fights really weird. Hamzat can potentially be the winner. So if Robert Whitaker does win, are we talking rematch? Rematch between Robert Whitaker and Hamzat? It's a potential, man. There's a little bit of a storyline that can be made from that, obviously. But listen, we don't know. We don't know who's going to win between Drakus and Hamzat. We don't know who's going to win between Robert Whitaker and RDR. So it'll be interesting because whoever wins this fight between Whitaker and RDR is going to have a lot of implications for the title moving forward. So we'll see what happens. Again, we've made our predictions. We're picking Robert Whitaker to win. No disrespect to RDR. Great fighter. Phenomenal at what he does. It's just I think Robert Whitaker just has a little bit more of all the things that you will need to get that job done. So make sure you guys watch the fight. It's going to be a great fight. I'm definitely going to be tuning in. We'll see what happens, man. And with that, make sure to like, comment, hate, subscribe, DM us about the bullshit, and
Until next time, get rest and stay blessed. We'll see you in the next one.